Listen, I have no personal ties to Chad Baker-Mazara. He's been fun for me to cover. Thought he'd be back at Auburn. He may still end up back at Auburn. I don't know how all that works. But I know he's in a tangled web of the NIL right now. He's out there. He hasn't found a home yet. There's been talk of Arkansas at one point, but Arkansas folks that cover him say no. Kentucky, Ole Miss, Providence. Could he go back to Auburn? But Jeff Goodman last night on the field of 68 sort of opened the door if you're wondering why Chad Baker-Mazara would go to the transfer portal and rub a lot of people the wrong way. Jeff Goodman sort of put some numbers to the madness of why Chad Baker isn't right now at Auburn and he's shopping.
So Chad Baker-Mazara signed a deal to remain at Auburn, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or so. I think it was in February. And the deal was worth a little, I think it was around $1 million. Okay, around $1 million. And again, my sources say that Chad then found out, and he was hurt, that Keyshawn Hall signed a deal with Auburn after the season for double the money, somewhere in the two-ish, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 range, somewhere there. And he was hurt because, he helped lead Auburn to a Final Four.
So those are the numbers.
I mean, I would be upset if I was Chad Baker-Mazara, too. I mean, if you got a guy coming in from Central Florida that's going to make double what you're going to make, and you feel like you're the alpha coming back, and I know there's going to be the other side of the coin that is the guy is emotional to a fault. I don't know if he's the kind of leader you want. I don't know.
Here's what I would say, though, and I don't know who his representation is or if he has representation. I assume he does. I don't know who it is.
Nico's old man.
Nico's old man might be the guy. But I would say that this is a great lesson for him on how the world works, is when Auburn came to him wanting to negotiate a deal in February, what would that have told you if you are Chad Baker-Mazara's representation?
Why are we not waiting until after the year to do this?
Well, and it would tell you what, that Auburn was pretty desperate to make sure they got some bodies that are left when this year is over, right? Because you can look at the roster, and we did it many times, and start counting the guys that aren't going to be there next year, right? Janai Broom, Miles Kelly, unless something changes, Chaney Johnson.
Well, if Pettiford leaves.
Maybe Pettiford.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to have it doesn't even matter if he stays or goes. If he stays, he's going to be a starter, but he wasn't a starter last year. You're going to be replacing all 5 of your starters this year.
Yeah,
and they've done that already.
Right,
Before we get into this, they have done a wonderful job replacing the talent.
Yeah, a lot of teams have to do that now.
But they didn't know that in February.
No.
That's why they're coming to you in February, because Bruce Pearl is also looking at this roster knowing I don't have any bodies left after this year, especially if I lose Chad. Now, I'm going to go get some in the portal, but I do know this guy, and he has done a lot for my program. So I would just say if you were Chad Baker-Mazara or his representation, at that point you had all the leverage. If 1.1 million or 1.2 million or 1.3 million is all you got, you either did a poor job representing him or that's all you were ever going to get. You maximized your deal. Now, apparently, and Jeff goes on to talk about this, there is a buyout in that deal where Chad Baker-Mazara can leave and only owe Auburn, I think it was $650,000.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
We're saying now only owe
$650,000. So, you can exercise that part of the agreement, which tells me he did have an attorney involved.
Right. Because there's
or
an
agent.
agreement.
Yeah, because there's an agreement like that. I'm just saying you had every opportunity to maximize your deal, and you either did it or you fell short. I mean, it's hard for me, like if I've got all the leverage and I think I've used all the leverage and then I realize you didn't really use all your leverage, that's kind of on me, not on Auburn.
Yeah, but I do think that this is, pretty evident Auburn didn't really want him.
See, I disagree with that. And that
I don't think they wanted him at $2 million a year.
No,
though.
they wanted him at a price.
Yeah, they wanted Hall at $2 million a year for sure.
It's like any NFL player. I would really love you back to be our wide receiver. We'll use T. Higgins as an example. We'll take T. Higgins back, but he's got to be back at this. I can't pay him what I'm paying Jamar Chase.
Again, this is how the world works.
I need Jamar Chase back.
That's right.
If I've got to choose between the two within my budget, I'm sorry, T, but we want you at this. You know what I'm saying? Chad Baker, we want you at this.
But he would seem important enough that he would be the highest paid player on this roster. The only thing I would say, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, last year you had some experienced guys like Broom and Kelly and Jones. I mean, you had guys that had a lot of experience that maybe could keep him in check. If Chad Baker comes back, he believes he is the unquestioned leader of this team.
Yes.
And is there a possibility the Pearls and other staff members were like, I don't know if I want this guy to be the unquestioned leader.
Yeah, but you would like to think the way the world works is if I am on the team and I am dedicated to the team, I get the maximum deal. But it's just not the way the world works.
Well, it is,
and that's what you're saying about Chad Baker-Mazara, and I get what you're saying, but it's just not the way it works in the real world. Unfortunately, you would like to think that's the way corporations and teams would operate is this guy is on our team. He's been a critical part to a Final Four team. He's not planning on going anywhere. He wants to stay. So let's make sure he's our highest paid guy. It's unfortunate. Like, I'll use us as an example. By many metrics, we were one of the most successful radio shows that Cumulus Media had, right? I mean, I'm not trying to pat us on the back. It's just the truth. Maybe I am trying to pat us on the back, but it's the truth either way. When did we get our biggest contract with them?
When we had chances to leave.
Right. When we had a chance to leave and they believed it, right? That was when they were like, no, we don't want you to leave. And we're like, well, we've been here for a decade now. You could have given us this deal anytime and we wouldn't be looking.
And that's my point. That's what I wanted to say here is that they came to us first and the offer was really, they wanted to keep us. They came to us first and the offer was really different. In February, in fairness to the Auburn coaching staff, the NIL world and the budget to run a top-tier basketball program looked different last year, the budget they were working on, probably the offer you got in February. And if you're representing Chad Baker-Mazara, if you're getting maybe a tad bit more money than Jedi was making at the time, you think to yourself, well, wow, next year they're going to be paying me more than Jedi is making. But what has happened? Now the budget has doubled in this offseason for your NIL, and it's costing you to get Keyshawn from UCF. It's costing you twice the money it cost you to have Jedi Broom on your roster last year.
And that's what's crazy. And like
inflation goes up.
Yeah, I get that, but where does this thing top out? Like Keyshawn Hall might be worth $2.2 million. But next year, you're going to have a sight unseen guy coming in from the American that's getting $4 million.
But the reason they're paying Keyshawn Hall more than they were paying Broom is because Broom, after his junior year, didn't say, you know what, I think I'd like to go to Duke. If he had said that, he would be making $2 million. And maybe he was, I don't know, but he would have maximized. Some people don't have the stomach for that. Some people don't want to say, you know what, I'll just leave.
Yeah.
If I'm not getting this, I'll just leave. And then it gets, you get some uncomfortable relationships and conversations when that happens.
Now we're using just Chad Baker-Mazara because of what Goodman said on the field of 68 last night. Just as an example, this goes on with a number of players on every basketball and football roster and probably baseball and softball, all these others, but at the highest profile, every college football and basketball roster at every major program right now in college athletics. This is the discussion that goes on with a general manager, a head coach, an assistant coach, a coordinator at any major football or basketball program in America today. We're just using Chad Baker-Mazara because it is top of a point here, field of 68. But this isn't exclusive to him or to Auburn basketball in this situation. It goes on everywhere. And the fact of the matter is that the budget's doubled in a year, likely because of this ruling coming down that could have a salary cap in the future. But the budget's doubled in a year. And that's why the pricing has gotten out of whack. So the question first comes, now what do the schools do? Well, one more from the field of 68. If you give me cut number 8, this is Rob Douster, who is co-hosting with Jeff Goodman there. And he says a phrase. Now, this is going to get us later to the death of college athletics. But he says a phrase here that I think Auburn fans would be okay with, but will the Auburn coaches and Auburn administration be okay with this if Chad Baker-Mazara ends up wearing a different uniform next year? Here's Rob.
I'm on board. Like, if Auburn's going to sue him, I'm on board with that. You sign a contract that has that as the buyout. and then you still put your name in the portal. Like that's if this is going to be professional basketball, and we're going to be dealing with
You signed it.
we're going to be
You
dealing
signed
with
it.
millions and millions
Yeah.
of dollars, and you sign something, a legal document, and then try to you can't back out of that. That's not how it works. This is the real world now. This is professional sports. You signed a contract with this is the buyout, and now you want to go in the portal, and that's what the buyout is. You got to pay for it. I don't feel bad for him at all. Like, you are professionals. You're 25, 26 years old. Like, he can't be sitting here pretending like he got the wool pulled over his eyes. No, he's got to pay that back if he goes in the portal. He does, and I firmly believe it.
So this is the first example I can remember.
Yeah,
of
I'm with you. I'm with you. I don't remember one getting this public, Lance, if it existed.
Yeah, and now the problem is this has been opened up. And so if you're any school out there negotiating, why would you not want this on your side?
I think you've got to now. I mean, now that you've seen the way this has played out, the I'm a Leva family.
That was very close to I'm a leaving.
I'm a leaving family has played out in both Knoxville and Fayetteville.
Well, that gets us to Hunter Yurchek, the
Yeah.
Arkansas athletic director, who posted this last night. I have spoken with the leadership team at Arkansas Edge, that's their NIL entity, and expressed my support in their pursuit to enforce their rights under any agreement violated by our student athletes moving forward. And that's Madden Amalieva, Nico's brother, who left to go to UCLA. So there's an SEC AD publicly saying what the guys on Field of 68 have said: if Auburn chooses to do this, they signed the document. You have our blessing to go chase it down and get your cash back. Why do you think some schools will not do that, and do you think more schools will do that?
I think it's going to work both ways. If you really don't want the guy and you want out of your deal, right? You let him walk.
Yeah, I mean, there would have to. You're saying a two-way buyout,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
But is there
An
a,
underperformance buyout.
is there a fear that if you become that, we're going to hold you to the letter of the law of this contract school, that will hurt you
Yes.
in
Oh, yeah.
signing
Yes.
future
Yeah.
athletes?
Yeah, I mean, because if I'm a stud player and I can go to UNLV, who's a good, let's assume they're a good program in football or basketball, and they're like, hey, our NIL deals, man, if you leave, you owe us nothing. I'm going to consider that one, Lance,
and
if it's a big item.
and if this becomes a landmark case,
Yeah.
where Baker-Mazara is paying back what, $650,000?
Yeah, and I want to talk about
60%, I think, is the wording I've heard, and I think Goodman says that it's 60%. So whatever the deal is, 60% of the deal.
So, but is that a pre-tax 60% or a post-tax? Because do that math real quick.
It's got to be pre-tax.
Okay, so do that math real quick. So if it's $1 million deal, what do you think his total tax liability on that is? State of Alabama and federal, 30%?
Yeah, 30.
All right, do that math. $700,000.
Yep.
It's only $150,000, $100,000 to $150,000 difference there. Maybe, I mean, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Your point
I'm
is,
saying
tell me how much am I going to have to get somewhere else for this
Right.
to financially even make it a raise for me?
Right, and I mean, that's going to be hard for him because
It's going to have to be around 2.4,
do
2.5
you
million.
I
See-
unfortunately don't think these kids are looking at the second step back to Nico.
But the problem isn't the kids. It's these fly-by-night
That's right, agents, because
agents in some places. Not all of them are fly-by-night.
No.
That was unfair of me. Some of these representatives who are looking out for themselves.
no, but now do that math. Let's say that agent's on a 10% take, which
Yep.
is low compared to some of the ones we've heard. There's another $100,000. All of a sudden, Chad Baker-Mazara is in the hole on this deal.
That's
if he
right.
doesn't find something that's a good
Yeah.
deal.
All of a sudden, he's renting to own that.
That is right.
bedroom furniture.
And I mean, do you guys, like, y'all thought more of Chad Baker-Mazara than me when we discussed this the other day? I can't remember if it was the day you were here or not. Y'all were higher on him than I was.
No, he is a excellent basketball
Yeah,
player.
I think he's a really good basketball player. You got to put up with the other bullshit
Yeah.
that comes with him.
Okay, but
Yeah.
even if you didn't, is he a $2 million player for you?
Well, in last year, no. But in this budget where I'm spending $10 million,
Yeah.
he's going to be a starter. So if I'm spending a $10 million budget, which is the top tier in basketball right now, 10 to 14 million, then he's a starter for me. He's a $2 million guy.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying Keyshawn 2.5 to come in, and he-
2.2-ish.
yeah, and look, he was really good at Central Florida, but is that going to translate to him being that good at Auburn?
I mean, that's what you don't know. I mean, again, if I'm throwing out millions, plural, it's going to start with Pettiford, and I'll get to CBM if I do.
Yeah. But here's the deal. Auburn doesn't need him anymore. You see what I'm saying?
Which
Because-
it impacts your value.
Yeah, exactly. If you they signed you to a deal that was fair at the time, you thought you signed it, and you've hit the portal. So the butter continues to be churned.
Yeah.
And Auburn continues to be one of the more successful teams reloading their roster, pulling in guys like Keyshawn Hall and the other players that they've pulled in here. And if Pettiford comes back,
well, and that's
then all of a sudden they're set. Their stock is rising right now without you. And so your leverage has gone down a little bit. But I don't know where he ends up. I'm just saying Auburn is fine without him, and a lot of people think he may have overplayed his hand here.
It might bruise the ego, but don't you think there's some back conversations? Look, Pettiford, if he comes back, like, he is our focus, and we're going to give him the most money. But if he doesn't, we're going to give you a percentage of the money we were going to give him.
Yeah, but you may not know that till May.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, and I've said this many times, and we're there now, and it's going to be difficult for some to digest. I get it. But this all gets cleared up if players are just employees that are under contract with obvious buyouts, and the buyout is paid by the team that ends up with him. That would slow a whole lot of this down. So if Chad Baker-Mazara wants to transfer to Kentucky, and Kentucky says, okay, we'll pay the $650,000, guess where Chad Baker-Mazara plays? He plays at Kentucky. Auburn gets the $650,000. They don't have to go to court for it. It is in black and white contracts. And a lot of this is cleaned up.